Welcome to Unlearning Out Loud. This is our second episode. My name is still Sid. Today I'm joined with my lovely friend and coworker Liz. Now, I know who you are, but I would love for you to introduce yourself to whoever might be watching.
Yeah, hey, my name is Liz, and I am 29. I'm going to be 30 this year. So we work together, and what about me? I live in the capital region of New York. I have a beautiful partner. His name is Alex. I have 2 cats, Junior and Pumpkin. Love to travel. Unfortunately, work in the nonprofit world, so I don't get to do that a lot. And I love art. I love yoga. And I love talking about grief. So we love to talk about the heavy shit. And I think that's exactly what we need to talk about. So.
Yeah. Grief is one of those things where I think, especially growing up, if you're not growing up losing, people all of the time, you're so inundated with ideas of what that's supposed to look like, whether it's from books, movies, TV, whatever, just seeing other people grieve. And I'm glad that you're willing and here to talk about it, because I think there's a lot to unpack there.
I think I was one of those people that didn't really lose anyone super close to me, at least as a sentient adult, until I was in my 20s.
Me too.
In my mid-20s. And so, I think there was a part of me, as more time went by, I was like, oh. And, that's another thing about me. I've lost, 4 close family members in the last 4 years. Boom, boom, boom. Sometimes that happens, So that's kind of something that I never thought that I'd have an interest in talking about, or really exploring. But my grandma, Betty, she died. She was the first one of the, foray of people that died, the parade of people that died. And she was on hospice for a while, so it wasn't a shock,
Yeah.
But it happened quickly.
Still doesn't make it any easier when they're on hospice. I lost my grandfather a little over a month ago, and even though he was in his 80s and, you start to get that, anticipatory grief of, someone's getting older. I know they're not well. I know they're kind of sick. It could happen anytime they, fall. Yeah. But even, it felt like it happened really quick once it started. Once he fell in the hospital, all of a sudden he's in hospice, and then boom. Yeah. It felt really quick, even though it sounds silly.
No, it was quick. I feel like just seeing it from the outside, I feel like it was a very,
and that decline.
Yeah.
Of, even when, my grandpa had Alzheimer's, dementia, and, so even though his, mental state wasn't great, going in, just seeing it tank but it felt really quick, and seeing, I saw you a couple weeks ago, now you're in the hospital, and you, can't form words. It sounds like you're speaking another language. Yeah. But then that, what really fucked me up was that, spike before the end of where all of a sudden he's, so sentient, sharing stories and talking more than, he's been in a long time. Yeah. And, some of my family members, we all, could name it and, knew what it was. But it's hard to not get that, last hope of, is it actually going to get better?
Yeah.
And then it doesn't, and it sucks.
Yeah. It's hard shit. And I know that this is heavy. So, I think I have...
You prepared.
Maybe. We're going to see. I feel like... I got this. Sid is a beautiful. Can I swear on the pod?
Yes,
a beautiful fucking human. It's true. And this is what are your favorite colors? And I'm I like browns. I like kind of earthy things. And she's like, I'm gonna make this for you, because that's just who Sid is, which is a wonderful person.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I know that it's very present, very front of mind for you. So I appreciate you being open to talking about this now, because I think there's never a good time to visit, right?
Yeah.
But I think especially when you're in the acute stages, and I would say I know, if you get a bereavement leave, it's 3 days, 3 fucking days. Sorry for everyone.
Gotta spread them out.
Right, every person that you whether it's your mother, whether it's your spouse. There are some people that don't count, by the way, in our policy. which is like I think cousins,
those
uncles,
quote unquote
aunts.
distant family members.
Right. And luckily, like, my boss, like, got me the time, which was very appreciated because, like, I love how they kind of, like, qualify, like, okay, so your spouse's step-great-grandfather, they count. Like, they're in the policy. You get 3 days for them. But not, like...
They make it so hard.
They freaking do.
And, like, when you think about it, like, 3 days, especially if it's someone, like, where they're, like, dying for a little bit, it's more drawn out. You're like, okay, I have 3 days. How am I going to split that up between, like, the day that I learn they die? If their services are during the week. Or if I want to take a day to, like, go visit them.
Right.
That's not a lot of time to spread out.
Yeah. And, like, with us, you could kind of see those things coming. Like, there was, like, the anticipation, which doesn't make it better, but, like, you kind of have a sense, and there's other people involved of, like, getting their services together and, like, kind of waiting through, like, if it's, like, traumatic or, like,
something
a really
really sudden.
tragic death, right? Like,
3 days is nothing.
Yeah.
Even if you tried to, like, do them back to back to back, your 3 days.
It's not shit. It ain't shit. And, like, hope you're good enough to, like, get over that person and everything they meant to you and get back to where, like, there's no timeline.
Right.
There's no timeline.
And our, like, society and our culture is just not, everything runs on capitalism, and it's, like, there's not room for grief in that. There's not room for even, like, love, whether it's showing up as grief or just, like, wanting to spend time with, like, family members that come in from out of town. Like, it's like, oh, sorry, I'm booked from 8 to 4:30 during the week. I will try to fit you in after when I'm, like, exhausted.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, like we talked about, when there's that time, like, between when it happens and when the services are, it's like, okay, I feel weird. Things are weird. I can focus on, like, what I need to do if I need to do anything for the services. Mm-hmm. Liz helps me make the most beautiful photo board for my grandfather's services, which I'm so grateful for. And that was such a good, like, it was a way to, like, honor him where, like, I felt really comforted by you being there and, like, being able to, like, go through those pictures and memories and stuff.
Yeah.
And not, like, alone. Because that would have really sucked. That would have been really hard. But it's like, I mean, we talked about, like, you know, you have that time in between, but then the services happen, and that's when it feels like, okay, services are done, get your ass back to work, like, everything's supposed to go back to normal
right
now.
Like, you're not sad anymore, right? Like, the funeral happened, you know, like,
you should have closure now, you should be good.
right, like, oh my gosh. I mean, I think, you know, especially, like, when you have that weight of the anticipatory grief for so long, you know, and then it happens.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what you think it's going to be, and it's also nothing like you think it's going to be, and you're just like...
Those expectations.
Like, my mom... So, the two of the people that I was closest with that are gone are my grandma, who was just... Oh, my God, she was my girl. I loved her. We were very close. And my grandpa. And I feel like they died when I was 25 and 27, just before my 28th birthday. So 2 years apart in the summer, which was so rude, so fucking rude of them to die then, because, like, that was our time together. Like, they were snowbirds. So, like, they would go down to Florida, and they'd be in Florida, like, living their best life with their friends down in Florida.
Nice.
Oh my God. Like, and we would sometimes, like, we'd go down, you know, on, like, our February break
and stuff,
and like, Christmas, you know, but the time that, like, I have so many, like, wonderful memories of being out there in the summer, you know, and being out there on, like, a Sunday afternoon and all of us having, like, a little, like, barbecue or just, like, hanging out at the lake and swimming and getting in the boat and having my grandpa, like, drag our asses across Glass Lake. And, like, that's also another reason why, like, this particular this podcast studio is so special, because they lived out here. Like, this is where they're, like, not from, they're from Troy, but, like, they raised their family out here. They lived out on Glass Lake. Like, they this is
really
where
in
our
the
family's
heart
from.
of it. Yeah.
And they love to read. So like this podcast studio is embedded in a bookstore called Lakebound Books, which is
Shout out.
Shout out.
We love it here.
Oh my God. No, Chris, Amanda, and Ashley,
we
you
love
slay.
you.
This place is just incredible. And all of the detail and like the boats and like it's so like being here today feels like kind of this like warm nostalgic hug from the past, you know what I mean? Because like they were always reading and they were always hanging out at the lake. We were always outside. We always had boats. Like there was a lot of nautical stuff like everywhere, you know? So this is like when this bookstore and this whole like setup came to be, I was like, oh my God, like I wish they were fucking here to see. You know, that's like I think that's one of the things that, you know, gets not to say tougher, but is kind of the thread that runs through life, you know, when
you have those big moments. Like, oh my gosh, I just wish I could tell them about this, or I wish they were here for that.
I wish they could have met this person.
Yes. My sister and I talked about that, and my sister said that in, like, her eulogy that she said at the service is, like, you're not going to be at my wedding, but, like, there's going to be a chair for you there.
Oh.
Yeah. Just, like, those heartbreaking things of, like, okay, you know, you're never going to get, if I have kids, you're never going to get to meet them, and you aren't going to be at my wedding, and even just, you know, I got a new job, or... my grandpa, he was big, like, everything was funny to him. You could tell him, like, the most depressing thing, and he'd just start laughing. Like, I remember being a teenager, and I would get, like, huge zits. Like, I wasn't someone, luckily, you know, in a way, where I got, like, a bunch of zits. I would just get, like, once in a while, like, huge volcanic pimples. And every time, I'd be like, oh, I hate the zit. I hate myself. You know, like those like 14, 15-year-old thoughts. And my grandpa would be like, nice fucking zit you got there. That's the biggest goddamn zit I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, he like took you, but like in a loving, like
it's like you have to laugh.
Then. Like it's okay. It's a zit.
Yeah,
like,
no, exactly. Like you could say anything to him, and he would like find a way to like relate to it, or he would like make something. He just make everything fun or funny. And I told this story at in my eulogy, like he just like would make anything fun. Like there was a time where I was bringing my grandma to one of her doctor's appointments, and I was tasked with kind of grandpa sitting my grandpa. And we called him Pop. And I'm like, okay, Pop, you know, like, let's go get some lunch. We go to this, like, little marketplace. They live in a super small town, so there's not a lot of options for lunch. But we're there, and he's like, well, we have to get dessert. They have, like, cookies and brownies and stuff. I'm like, okay, yeah, grab whichever one. He grabs one of each dessert that they have to offer, and I'm paying, so I'm like... all right, Pop, thanks for doing that. And we, like, get home, and his, like, favorite words were, like, goddamn. Everything was, like, the goddamn roof or the goddamn, like, everything. And then Jesus Christ. Those are, like, his favorite things to say. But we got, like, sandwiches and then our desserts, and he's like, this is the best goddamn sandwich I've ever had in my fucking life. And he's like, oh, we're going to eat all the desserts. Like, he didn't want to just have one. He's like, we're going to eat, like, all three of the ones that we got. So we have this, like, dessert flight. We gobble that shit up, and I'm like, okay, we're done. Which one was your favorite? And he's like, we're not dumb. We're not done. There's crumbs to be had. And so we just took turns. And my grandpa only had one arm, so we took turns just licking our finger, picking up crumbs, and whoever got the last crumb was like the winner. But it was like that's something like so small and silly, but like that's like what I think of, like when I think of him, like even just those like silly kind of dumb things, like. We just had dessert, and now we're going to move on. He's like, we're not moving on. There's still crumbs. We have to make a game out of it. His, like, favorite thing I taught him was, like, when you have, like, a can and you have the little tab, like, flicking it back and forth, like tennis or ping pong, and then whoever is the one to finally, like, flick it off is the winner. He was, like, obsessed with that after I showed him. But he couldn't flick that hard. I always was, like, letting him win. So it took a really long time for us to, like, finally flick the thing off. But he'd be like, oh, I did it. I'm the best goddamn, like, can player in the world.
Oh.
Like, he is just the best, and I miss him. He just brought, like, so much, like, joy and fun to, like, literally anyone that he met. And I would get so pissed because we would go, especially as a kid. I got better when I got older, I like to think. But anytime we'd go anywhere, because they were such a small town, not a lot of one-armed, goofy men in the town.
Yeah.
Anytime we'd go anywhere, people would, like, recognize he was a yapper, so he would talk to them forever. And I'd get so pissed, especially if we were getting food. I'd be like, I've been waiting to order for 30 minutes because you won't stop talking to all of these people. But, like, everybody just, like, loved him.
Oh.
Like, he could and would talk to literally anyone, where, like, when stuff started getting bad with his Alzheimer's and he's, like, wandering off and, like, lost, you had, like, the entire town, like, out looking for him, out on, like, four-wheelers looking for him in the woods, asking around about him, which just feels like that's what I love about community, is, like, when things are hard, how the community, like, shows up in those ways. And then it is also hard on the flip side when that person passes, like, after that kind of, like, after the services really are over, there's, like, less checking in on people and, like, you know, that doesn't hang around forever, unfortunately. And that part is hard, too.
Yeah. Like, that whole, like, idea of, like, a timestamp around grief. And, like,
Yeah.
also, I know this is kind of going back a little bit, but thank you for letting me be a part of putting his memory board together because, like, I feel like I got to kind of know him a bit, you know, and, like, his personality and just to kind of, like, I think there's something really special about photos, you know, and I know that we're in an age where, like, we have access to more photo technology and storage than we've ever had before. And, you know, I know people have all sorts of different feelings about it, but I think, you know, as time goes on, seeing kind of, not shadows, but, like, seeing, you know, impressions that this person had, you know, memories and, like, their facial expressions, you know, and things that are just, like, so, and memories and just things that are so precious. Like, when my grandma got sick, which was the beginning of COVID, that was a lot of fun.
Such a tough time, too.
It was trash, bro. It was trash. So her whole, like, evolution of illness, I mean, I won't talk about it too much because it wasn't, like, her journey. Like, it was her journey, but it wasn't what made her.
Yeah, it didn't define her. Yeah.
You know? But she was on hospice care for a year, and, like, we thought she was die, like, as soon as she got put on hospice care.
Because that's, like, the assumption I think most people have, you know, hospice is end-of-life care. You think it's going to be, like, a month max.
Right there.
Yeah.
And the doctors, like, they never said it, but she was at a local hospital. And we couldn't be there with her, like, because she was in the ICU.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were really, I mean, this was, like, June 2020, so this was, like...
the thick of it.
Yeah. And, like, you know, we kind of had this weird time, I feel like, in COVID, where, like, a lot of people weren't going to the hospital in the area that I lived in because they were really scared they were going to get sick. So didn't see a ton of it here. And then June popped up and it was like, everyone's getting sick, like, and no one's allowed in the hospital, you know, and just, like, not knowing what the hell it was, you know, and, like, trying to figure out what was safe and what wasn't. But she was in the ICU, so there was no way in hell that we were going to get in there, you know. And
what a time. Like,
what it was shit because she, like, learned that she was dying there. Like,
and you couldn't be there.
And we couldn't be there. It was, like, on a video conference call with, like, my
that's
grandpa.
What I was going to say. Like, the iPads in the hospital and, like, talk about grief on such, like, an insane scale.
Yeah.
What a fucking time.
I feel like, and that's another, okay, we're going all over the place with this. Another thing to know about me, I have raging ADHD, so I'm really sorry if my, like, brain is like, what is she fucking talking about now? But I promise this is all, like, it all comes back to grief. That's our topic today. So, actually, this might be a good time if you're down. I can introduce a couple things that I learned about grief. When you talk about, like, community, so when my grandma died, that was kind of, like, I was going to say this at the beginning, and then I, like, completely detoured. When my grandma died, I hadn't been in therapy in a long time, and kind of knew that I probably should have been. I mean, there were other things that I probably should have been in therapy for at the time, but my grandma dying and, like, kind of, like, I knew for a long time with the anticipatory grief, you know, the more time that goes by, at least you know, from my vantage point, the more time that went by, the more it's like the like energy potential. Is that what it's called? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the more I knew that was going to fucking hurt when it happened.
It's
and
like you're like, it gets so, like, tight and close that when it finally happens,
it's like, oh my God, like, it like builds up, like the boogeyman kind of builds up, you know, and I'm like other people have like ripped the band as if like, you know, as if I like wanted them to die sooner, you know what I mean? So that I could experience it like earlier and be like more familiar with it. Cause I knew that it was going to fundamentally change my life.
Yeah.
I knew that it was going to like, there would be a before and an after, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of knowing those feelings and knowing that experience and like going through that. So I started seeing a grief counselor. Love you, Sarah. And it was just a very, she was so sweet and so compassionate and held a lot of space for like the huge weight of sadness that I felt in losing my grandma. Like it was hard. And there were so many facets of it. I mean, like family grief that came up and like feeling for my mom because it was her mom. And
your
like,
parents lose their parents.
Oh.
It's like a whole added layer of pain.
Yes. Like watching everyone else kind of deal with this loss. And like, you know, there's so many, it's such an intense, it's like, that's the word that I would really kind of use to define grief. I mean, it's so layered, but it's so, and it's not like a monolith, but it's also so intense, I feel like, no matter what it is, you know, and especially in the beginning days, you know, the months and the weeks after, like it's a lot. So I joined a grief group that my counselor held, that was very helpful because like we could all kind of, and it didn't have to be like the grief of death, you know, and we all kind of got to learn about grief together and explore it together and cry together. And like people had grief that was about sex. Yeah. People had grief that was about their child dying or their parent dying or their sibling dying. Like it was incredible. It was very helpful. And we learned something called the 5 gates of grief. So we know the 5 stages. Right. Maybe we don't. But it's Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, right?
I think so.
Came up with that. So explain that. Social worker said.
I think it's all you. Okay. It's all you.
So, you know, there's the 5 stages. And now, like, it was initially, when the theory was developed, kind of thought of as, like, a chronological series of, like, these are the stages that you go through as you process, you know, the death of a loved one. So it's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And since then, they've kind of been like, no, it's a little bit more cyclical than that. Like, it's not like you kind of
like,
you
move from the first stage to
denial.
The second stage, and you can't go back or up or down or anything.
Right. Like, now your anger stage is over. You can't be angry anymore. Like, sorry. Like, you got to bargaining a little too quick, honey. But, like,
take your time.
And it's not that at all. Like, it's so much more complex than that, I think. And nuanced. But the 5 gates of grief, even just kind of like outside of the grief of death, have been so helpful for me to understand a lot of plights I think that we go through as humans and that we don't necessarily talk about because grief isn't something that we like to talk about, and it's something that in our society we just like shy away from it, and 3 days and then you're back to work and everything's normal, and the funeral happened, we don't check in on each other anymore because we kind of have this assumption that it'll lighten over time. And in some ways it kind of lightens over time, but it's also...
It's like our tolerance with it gets a little bit, like your friend was saying, it's like things, you know, when people are like, oh, things get better with time, it's like, do they get lighter or do I just get stronger?
That part. Okay, so I redact that. You get stronger. And one of the things that was really helpful, I think, early on was, and through time, like working with Sarah, was that she said a lot, grief is a skill. It's a practice. And, you know, as someone that's really going through profound grief for the first time, in a way that you're really kind of like diving into it and looking at it with me. Like, this is something that's going to be a theme for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know?
Unfortunately so.
Fuck. I'm like, she's right. I don't want her to be right, but she's right.
It's a hard truth. Talk about like acceptance. It's like there's not just like the acceptance of like this person is gone and they're not coming back.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like those layers of acceptance of like, oh shit, everything is different. And even like my sister and I talk about like, oh, like holidays, certain days. My grandpa's birthday was on Cinco de Mayo. His name was Brian, so we always just called it Cinco de Brio. That day's I'm taking it off of work.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, everything is different. Everything is
Yeah.
different from here on out in different ways. And the acceptance of that is also really hard.
Yeah.
I like that in your like grief group, you're able to talk about like grief isn't always about like a person dying, which I think is something that like I'm really interested in talking about, because I think as someone who's been through trauma, having to grieve like the loss of different parts of ourselves, whether it is because we lost someone or we went through something and we lost friends or relationship as like not a consequence, but because we had to change because of something that we went through. Or
Yeah.
like I think about when I was in college and like went through like a college sexual assault and so much shit that happened with that, but the friends and like relationships that I lost because I like wasn't really quiet about what happened and was such like a large voice on campus and student organizing, which I would never change.
Yeah.
And there's parts of acceptance in that too, of like, if I'm gonna do something that maybe makes the weight of like grieving something that happened to me or was done to me, and that's gonna cause someone to want to like leave my life, I can accept that because I don't want that.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, what could I have been if that didn't happen? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
just those different versions of ourselves and how we kind of do have to adapt and change and accept that sometimes things have to change and they aren't ever going to be the same, and that has to be okay, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
We can't go back, because that would be more of that denial stuff. Like, even though, you know, they don't go in that order, she did eat with the naming the things that happened.
Oh my gosh. So let's get into them. We'll see where we go with these. Okay, so the first, so this is Francis Weller's typology of grief. And Francis Weller is a psychotherapist, and that's about as much as I know about Francis Weller. But they ate with these 5 gates of grief. I think there's more now. I think they've like, added to the list.
Yeah.
Which is cool. But I like 5. 5 is a good number. So we're going to stick with 5 for now. It was the OG. So the first kind of gate of grief is exactly what we're talking about, like the impermanence of everything. Like the grief of knowing that everything you know and love is impermanent and will die. And that was like, that's number 1. Fuck. Like, that's number 1. Like, I gotta like process 4 more. Like, Jesus Christ. So that's 1. Like, everyone's gonna die. And if you're not one of the first to go, you're gonna watch everyone else go.
Yeah, that's survivor's guilt.
Love that. So that's number 1. Isn't it funny? You can see like the discomfort with that, but like that's a heavy ass one to like make peace with. Number 2, the grief of places within you that have not known love.
Ooh, don't hit your head, girl.
I'm trying to knock. Damn, we're only on 2. That was also for us girlies out there with low self-esteem. That one also hits, you know, and it's a very I think it's really tied in with number 1, because you kind of see when someone dies, you know, number 1, what they brought to your life, good, bad, ugly.
Yeah.
You know, and so you kind of, now that they're gone and that, you know, you're sort of left with yourself.
Yeah, that's hard.
You know, you're sort of sitting with like, oh, what did I miss out on? You know, like I got time. Like I'm not in this energetic exchange anymore. It's me, kind of, you know, with memories and with, you know, the task of remembering this person, you know, and keeping them alive in some way.
But what a beautiful like task to have, a weight to carry. Yeah. There was something I wrote in my eulogy. I'm probably gonna flub up what I actually said, but it was something I was thinking about a lot. Is like how lucky am I, even though it fucking sucks that I have to endure like the loss of someone that I love so much. Like that I'm going to endure having to like miss that person forever.
Yeah.
Like how lucky am I that I loved someone so much that I'm going to endure that I'm going to endure missing them for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And that's like the flip side of this one too, because I think there's also, you know, when you lose someone that wasn't so kind and wasn't so great, you know, and you're kind of reckoning with, not that like that's the thing that brings up all of your feelings about this person and how they were to you, but it can. And the places within you that haven't known love, that's a deep one. We're recording this in March 2026. So number 3 is the grief of the sorrows of the world. And
there's a lot.
Yeah. And if you're a little sensitive, you know, and sentient and you pay attention and you're empathetic and you give a shit about people.
Exhausting.
Grief of the sorrows of the world. That one's a heavy one as well. Number 4, this is interesting. Grief of what you expected, which didn't come to pass.
Ooh.
The relationship that didn't work out. You know, the way you thought things were going to go down, the job you didn't get, the thing you wanted to pursue that you couldn't, or didn't, you know. Regret and resentment is really, I think, tied in with that one. And that's a heavy one too, you know, like when I think of that one kind of related to the grief of death, like I remember the day that my grandma died. I wasn't even want to cry. It's been 4 years and it still kind of knocks me off my, you know, off my axis. But I remember that week was so like touch and go. Because it was clear that she was going to die soon.
Yeah.
But like her actual passing, like I had 25 years to kind of anticipate and like grow close to her, but also kind of anticipate what I thought it was going to be, which was like sitting vigil and all of us kind of like her being like in the coma state, you know, and like, or like the unconscious
idea
state.
That we get from like movies and stuff is that even like I remember like when I would read an obituary and it would always say like, oh, they
surrounded by their loved ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was not the case for me either.
Yeah.
But that's still what it said in the obituary. Because, like, as he was dying, you know, we were all there when we could be.
Right.
But for my case, like, no one was there. Like, which I think, I mean, who knows? But I think some people maybe wait to pass until they are alone because it's really hard to let go. I can imagine. But it's like, it's that regret of like, should I have gone and visited one more time?
Right.
Like,
and I had seen her that week, you know, like I had been out there that week and I had spent a lot of time with my grandma. Like I was out there usually at least once a week for the 2 years and like would spend hours out there because I wanted to see them. And I knew the time with her was finite. And she was sick for 2 years, which is crazy. She graduated from hospice, which is fucking
rare.
nuts. Like, she graduated from hospice. Like, when she came home from the hospital, she had heart failure, congestive heart failure, and she had multiple myeloma. So they put her on this drug to treat the myeloma, and it, like, really, like, fucked with her heart, like, bad. So her blood pressure, like, tanked, and she got brought to the hospital, and then she was in the ICU, and they told her she was going to die, and, like, it was not good, not good. And, like, everyone, this was crazy. This is, like, a moment that also sticks out with me. Like, my mom, aunt, uncle, and grandpa, like, in the room together at the house, and her being on the iPad, like, getting the news from the doctor, and basically that, like, she could only stay in the ICU with, like, this intravenous, like, port in her neck. And that was the only thing that could keep her BP up. And as soon as she was taken off of that, it would drop because it had. Like, they had tried a couple times and, like, her blood pressure just tanked. And they were like, you know, it could be this weekend, you know, that she passes if she, like, you could stay in the ICU or you could go home, you know, on hospice. And she's like, I want to go home. I want to go home. And I'm like, ugh.
Like, no one wants to die in the hospital.
Right? Like,
it's not a good place to
go. The ICU, like, well, some people do, I guess. But I think a lot of people, you know, want that comfort of home and, like, being with people that
especially
they love.
Especially when they have loved ones that are still around.
Right.
It's a lot more comforting, I would think.
Right. And you're in, like, your place. You got a little bit more control, like, you know. So she came home. And was sick for 2 years, but was taken off of hospice care and then put back on. And so the day that she died, she was kind of like the last week, she was kind of agitated.
Yeah.
And, they had started the morphine and she was like, just transitioning,
Yeah.
like slowly. But she was like, the way that it all happened was she was like upright and she had asked my uncle to check her oxygen because she was on oxygen for 2 years. And he was like trying to adjust everything. And she just like took her last breath, and it happened like, I mean, it wasn't there, but from what I know, it happened very quickly.
Freaky.
Really crazy. But like, honestly, kind of the way to happen. Like, I mean, ideally you like go in your sleep, but like, if you're not asleep, it was very quick. One of the things that's like really crazy about this was my uncle was like the person in the room with her, like that witnessed it all and was there to be there for her. And he had his like music on shuffle. And so he had like a couple of songs playing and they were all like, the song that played as she drew her last breath was Knocking on Heaven's Door by Bob Dylan. It was just crazy because like the first line is like, Mama, take this badge off of me. I can't use it anymore. Like her oxygen wasn't working, It's getting too hard to see. I'm knocking, or dark. It's getting dark, too dark to see. I'm knocking on heaven's door. And she went to heaven or wherever, wherever we all go. And that was insane. And so I called, that was like 10 o'clock in the morning. And I called my mom at like 11 day from work and had said, because it was so touch and go, I'm like, is this a good day to like come out? Because I don't want to I don't want to be in the middle of or like add to any chaos or anything. If she's not up to having people over, And my mom was like, honey, she passed.
Ugh.
Honey, she passed. And like the sinking, I was alone. I was in my apartment and I was alone. And the drive to my house, she was like, don't come here. Like, everyone, like the funeral, like the undertaker's here, the funeral director, like there's a lot going on. And like, meanwhile, like my mom is like, wasn't there either. And it's her mom. And they were like this, like they were so close. And so she's had to kind of also deal with the, like, I don't know if it's guilt or, the things that you expected that didn't come to pass, like these visions of like hoping that you're there for that, and then being like, I wasn't fucking there for that.
And there's
I wasn't
nothing
there for
you can
that.
do.
Right.
It was the same for like my sister and I.
Yeah.
It was like he had been in a hospice house for, I think it was only like 2 or 3 nights, but the second night, like my sister and I had been driving like an hour to like an hour 40 minutes when he was in the hospice house, like every single day, and we were both just like, we're so exhausted, like we can't go out tonight.
I know.
And then the next day he passed and we both were like it's like the duality of knowing like I needed to sleep. I probably would have crashed my car on the way home if I didn't like rest and stay back, and not trying to like blame yourself or like resent yourself in a way for not going.
Yeah.
It's like realistically, like my dad had went and he was like, he was asleep the whole time. Like, but it's just like, seriously, I was there every day for like 2+ weeks, and the one time I don't go, you pass away the next day.
Yeah.
And that's when it felt like it happened fast, because the next day, like, we were planning on I was going to take a half day from work and I was going to go. Same thing. And then I get a text from my dad while I'm out of school for work, and I had one more class to do, and he texts my sister and I and was like, he took a turn overnight. They think it's going to be like 24 to 48 hours. I go, I do my last class at the school, and I'm walking out. My dad's like, call me. So I'm in the car, and he's like, so he passed. You don't need to rush. Like, we can get there when we get there. And it was just like, you just said it was going to be 24 to 48 hours, and I thought I was going to get to go, and I was going to get to see him one more time, even if he wasn't with it. And obviously, when they're predicting those things, it's not an exact science, but it's just like, fuck.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, that like drive. I remember calling you to like update you, and then just being like, okay, because I'm gonna like go, just like it's like that. Like
remember us talking about the freaking
the fingerprints.
Oh my god! So I wore like all my jewelry, all my dead relative jewelry today, and this is what I had made. Grandpa's fingerprint.
That's what I want to get, something like that. I just don't know my ring size.
I don't even know either. I feel like my mom got this for me, which was really sweet. But one of the things that I recommended was part of our phone call that day was fingerprints. And this is a shout out to our girl, Adriana, who I like the darkest sense of humor, but her grandpa died. Her grandpa died at the beginning of the summer, and then mine died at the end of that same summer. So she kind of went through all the motions.
It's like passing the torch.
Like, here you go, girl. This is like the worst fucking relay race. But so she got a ring with the fingerprint, and they like went to like, they went to a funeral home that had like a lot of options.
That's nice.
When it came to like memoriam kind of like gifts and like things like this. Like I'm pretty sure she maybe got it from there, or maybe Etsy, I don't know, but they took fingerprints. Like that was a part of like their package, and my grandparents are from Averill Park, so that we went through were people that like also lived on the lake and were friends, or like friendly with them. And they're definitely a smaller operation, like family owned. They're incredible people, like incredible.
What a tough job to have.
Holy shit! Like
shout out to the funeral home directors and all
the real ones, hospice nurses, funeral directors, like LPNs. Like you guys are like freaking amazing. But they didn't have like that wasn't part of like a standard package.
Yeah.
So I was like, Mom, this is where grandpa died. I was like, can we like get fingerprints? And they were like, no, like,
they're like,
no.
if you want to do it.
So cue Michaels. This is not sponsored by Michaels, but like get the ink pad and then go get fingerprints. And I know that you guys got like a ton of fingerprints.
I was on the phone with you and Michaels. I'm like, what's the brand that you got?
And it's like when you go to, I think it's called Recollections. And when you go to pick it up, it's got like a fucking like paw print on it, like a dog,
like a baby foot.
And I'm like, guess what? We're gonna make this work for us today.
Yeah, and that was like, and I'm so grateful that you did say that, because I ended up, my sister is CNA, so she felt a little more comfortable, kind of like being the one to get the fingerprints.
Yeah.
But we did it together. My family thought it was a little weird that I brought that, but I think they were grateful for it in the end. I got a bunch of them and then was able to like frame them with like some nice paper behind, so that everyone kind of has like a piece of him. And I'm probably also gonna get a ring, but it's just it was a really good idea. So shout out to you. Shout out to Adriana.
We walk so you can run. That's dark.
Right to Etsy, baby. Into Michael's. And me sprinting into Michael's like, what do I need to get on the way?
Recollections, aisle 56. Like,
literally, she's like on the Michael's app as I'm walking in.
There's
she's like, okay, you're going to go straight. You're going to take a left.
I'm just like, I think it's really special when you can, like, I love that your sister did that, Like, and I think she probably would too, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
That like that's another thing that I feel like we're so taboo with, in our society, is like sitting with someone's body.
It was really weird
after they've died, right? It was
really
What was
heavy.
that like for you guys?
It was like, so I got there. One of my cousins was there that I like wasn't sure if he was gonna go, and that's when I like kind of lost it. I was like, you're here. I start like crying, and because he was in like a literal like house, like it was this literal house where they took like 2 patients at a time, so they're like in a proper bedroom, and I just like walk in, and like his mouth is open and he's like kind of blue, and it was just like the immediate like just like, obviously I knew, I was told that he had passed, so I knew, but seeing it was like not that layer of closure, but it was in a way. It was like, oh, okay, there's his literal dead body. No, like, question about it. But then it was like, you know, the funeral home people were going to be coming to take his body. So we're kind of like waiting around, like hanging out. And, you know, we had like different chairs and stuff, just like kind of sitting with him. My sister and I did the fingerprints, and everyone else kind of left the room so we could do that. And then the funeral home people were about like 30 minutes away, so we knew we had, like, after we called that they were going to come in like 30 minutes, so we all kind of like took turns saying like our final goodbyes, which was just like so heartbreaking. And then seeing him like on the gurney, and you know, they like zip it up to here so that you can, and he had his little fire department hat on. I know, I'm getting all emotional. But it was really like, I'm glad that I was there and was able to do that, even though it fucking sucked. And being able to like be with my family and like lean on each other in that way. And I'm also super close with my grandma, so like I remember her losing it naturally. My grandparents were married for like over 60 years, so long time. And she was just like crying into us, and like, as sucky and shitty as that is, like the comfort of like everyone's going through the same thing in different ways, but like that collective experience of like mourning that person. And then, you know, we went to the funeral home, things got a little like, everyone's like arguing what's best to put in the obituary, and everyone's really tired and cranky and hungry. I remember being so fucking hungry. But then, you know, even after that, you know, we picked out an urn. We got a really nice one. It's like dark forest green. It has like this beautiful image of a couple deer like in the woods, because he was a big hunter. Even with one arm, he could shoot a gun.
That was crazy.
A sight to be seen.
Those memorial photos were like him in this like neon green shirt, which his favorite shirt, right?
Yes.
Which I love.
The hot pink stripes.
Fucking go, man. I love that. And him with one arm and his shotgun and like various animals that he had hunted. I was like, holy shit. That is impressive.
No, it's funny. I know my uncle's eulogy, he was like, because he was a fireman, so he'd ride in like the truck in the parades, and my uncle said something like, you know, we'd always tell people like, hey, stop waving to Dad because he's driving the truck. He only has one arm. Please don't wave to him because he'll wave back. And I remember like we finally went to dinner after, and I won't say where, but the place took a really long time. I was like a level of hangry that I don't think I've been in my entire life. Like we were at this like Asian restaurant. I started eating foods I've never would have tried before because I was so hungry. We all are like, get a drink and like kind of toast to my grandfather, but it was like we haven't had a dinner like all together as a family in like a really, really long time. So even though the circumstances are super shitty, it's like, you know, we're together and we're sharing stories and we're laughing and trying not to think about the dead body that we just saw. It's there's so many layers of like it being heartbreaking and like you're hyperventilating, crying, unable to breathe, snot all over the place. So then like, you know, sharing those stories and like being with the people that like have those shared experiences, those shared memories, and are able to comfort you in a way that's maybe just more comforting because they really knew him in a similar way. So even though it really fucking sucked, it was like one of the worst days of my life, and then also like had some of my like better memories like with certain family members because we were all more kind of like open with each other, more like emotional. Some of my family members are not very emotionally open, so sometimes it's rare to see them like that, even if it was a shitty circumstance. It's like, you know, have those deeper conversations.
Like, this will break you open. Like, that's did that surprise you? Like the better parts of the day?
Yeah, I think that was like you said before, like you kind of think about it sometimes, like when you're younger, especially we were both in our 20s when our first big ones happened, and it's like, you know, you have an idea of what that day is gonna look like, and then it looks almost nothing like that. Like I didn't even think I thought about like going to the funeral home and like picking out an urn and like being with my family. Like it was interesting, And now, even now looking back on it, I'm like, thank God that we didn't just like go see his body off and then go home.
Yeah.
Like, again, as shitty as it was and emotionally draining as it was like that community part of, you know, we're going through it together. We can still support each other. And I was really hungry, so I definitely needed food and a drink. But it was a little surprising. Even like, it was funny, my sister and I, during the calling hours for the wake, we like we were like laughing with everyone who like came through, because we also didn't set up in a very good way in the line, and people are like coming down and we're like kind of at the beginning of the line, so then people are like stuck in line, and we like, my sister and I like barely knew anyone that came through, because it was like a lot of like my aunt and uncle's friends like from the town, or like people who met my grandpa's dentist, or like people that met him like once or twice, just people from the community. And we'd just be like, so how's your night going? Just like have like these really silly, goofy like conversations with people. Yeah. And we'd be like laughing, and then everyone else would be like crying. We'd be like, oh, are we like being weird right now? Should we not be being like this? But it was like a coping. Was, like,
yeah. Also, like, coping, but also it sounds like something your grandpa would do.
That's what we said. We were like, he would be the same way. My grandpa was one of, like, 11 children. Yeah. Now there's only 3 of them left, so he was, you know, you could do the math there. I'm not going to. My brain hurts. But, like, my dad told us when one of his other brothers died, he was, like, at the service, and he, like, made a comment, oh, you know, I think so-and-so's got some dementia going. He's losing it. And my dad's like, you have dementia. You're losing it. Like, what were you to say? Like, that so-and-so is probably losing their mind. Like,
I love that.
He was just, like, God. Life of the party. Even if it was just him alone in a room, like, he would be the life of the party. Like, he was, like, literally the human embodiment of sunshine. Yeah. And it definitely sucks. Yeah. But it's like, I think of him, and I was talking to my sister yesterday, like, we're like, you know, you're like driving and you get like a flashback of like seeing their dead body in a room, or you just get those random flashbacks of those darker times towards the end. I'm like, oh nope, I need to like immediately think of like something happier, because when I think of like my, you know, memories with him before those last couple of weeks, like they're all happy. Yeah. And like,
and that was a fraction of his life.
Right.
Like, it sucks.
Yeah.
It can be traumatic, you know, and certainly like make space for that, you know, like as time, like that part is its own grieving process, you know, but you can't lose sight of who they were.
Yeah.
Like
that's what you want to hold on to.
Keep in front of mind. What's the biggest thing that you've learned, do you think, in the month? You know? But what's the thing that you've learned, you know, in this process?
I think that, like, I don't want to have any expectations. Like, I think I was someone who, like, was like, oh, this is what it's going to look like. This is, because I, like, my other, like, huge loss I had was when I lost my, like, childhood dog. And, like, that was fucking devastating. It was heartbreaking. It was awful. Little different. Yeah. But I think it was just, like, I'm not someone who, like, is, like, comfortable with the idea of death. Like, it's not something where I'm like, oh, yeah, it's part of life, you know, la, la, la. Even though I knew it was coming, I had, like, ideas and expectations of, like, what that might look like. Mm-hmm. But I think what I learned is, like, not shying away from talking about it. I know I've had, like, people from high school that I've lost, or, like, friends who have lost people. And I just think, like, I try to, like, find ways to bring up the person that they've lost, because there's someone, especially like once the services are over and you get past that point where it's like weird, it feels weird to like bring it up, or like people kind of like tiptoe around bringing up that person because it's sad. But I'm like, I would take any opportunity to like talk about him and the person that he was. Yeah. And so I think that too is like something that I learned of like not shying away from, like, bringing him up, or asking other people about, like, people that they've lost. Like, even one of our other coworkers, like, I talked to him about, like, how he lost his parents, and, like, if I can, like, naturally give him a way to, like, talk about them. And, like, I try to do that just because it sucks.
Yeah.
And it's fucking hard.
And I think in the U.S., in some cultures in the U.S., I think we really don't make space for death because we're scared of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money to be made in prolonging life, I think. Which that's really dark, but I think it's true.
It's true.
And, you know, like, acknowledging death as a part of is something I think we need to work on, you know? Yeah. And there are other cultures, I mean, this is really bastardized, so sorry. But, like, even, like, you know, Day of the Dead, you know, Dia de los Muertos, like, that I think that's a stunning holiday because, or, like, observance, because
I love it.
The idea, right, is that, like, that's the
Beautiful.
point. You make the ofrendas, like, you create a space where, you know, your loved one is remembered and cherished and still exists, you know, just because they're out of sight doesn't mean that they're out of mind, you know, and that they're still there. Let me see if I can find the quote. I think I'm just digging through my shit again. But there's this quote that was on Facebook that has been very helpful to me in processing grief. But, you know, I think as I'm, you know, pulling this up, I think, you know, one of the things that we don't talk about but has also been extremely helpful is like talking about the dying process. You know, if someone dies a natural death, like, there are so many TikTok accounts that I followed. My algorithm became like grief talk. Like, it really did. And, like, you know, be wary of how you engage with that. So if you're like an empath like I am, like, you end up taking on a lot of other people's stuff. Yes. But if you also, like, are mindful and you can kind of pick out the things that are helpful, like hospice nurses are an incredible resource and an incredible part of, like, while it's scary to talk about it, it's also not something to be feared. I don't think, because it's not going on hospice isn't evading death, right? It's choosing something that, I mean, everyone makes their choice, like, do you know? But I think opting into it and receiving support was incredibly beneficial for every situation, for the most part. And having some education about, like, what dying looks like and sounds like, you know, I think is incredible. And hospice nurses, I just think, are amazing. Also, funeral talk. The two, like, accounts that I really like are hospice nurse Penny. She's really cool. And other hospice nurses, hospice nurse Julie too, and then Hollis Funeral Home, because like they're in Syracuse, but they have like a really they talk about it kind of on the other end, you know, too, of like how things happen, you know, in the funeral home process, and kind of demystifying that a little bit, like, and they're just like they're family owned, like, it's really like sweet, you know, like there's like multi-generations, you know, working in this funeral home, which I think is really cool. But you know, the more that you can kind of integrate that into what you know and understand about death, you know, the less freaky it becomes, the more like normal it becomes. And just like keeping them alive in some way. Like the gift of grief is that you get to keep them alive now. You know, you get to be a person that holds them in your heart and in your mind and in your time. And I found the quote.
Okay, perfect. Then I have one more question before we wrap it up.
This is something that I found like a year ago, 2 days before the anniversary of my grandma's death. Okay. So it came in at a good time, you know, when I was probably struggling a bit. But it's my father's mother. My father's mother loved lemons. Years after her passing, we run out of everything, but never lemons. Nothing shelters grief better than memory. It's my father's way of saying, even in your absence, you will be cared for by me. And I love that.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I just think like certain things like, you know, my grandpa was also a sweet tooth. So like whenever I get like, man had diabetes and he
Same.
didn't stop him.
So did my grandpa.
Like just that. And I think like sugar, like sweets are one of the last like types of food that you like, you know, can crave or like enjoy or taste
like
as
your
you
pudding
get
or your
older.
Jello.
Right? Like just love it. So like if I see a sweet treat, like a black and white cookie, he loved those. That always reminds me of him. So I'll get one and I'll think of him. Or like this coffee cake that my grandma loved, or Natalie's orange juice, which they loved, you know, or like black coffee. I drink it like that, just like my grandpa did. I've got jewelry, you know, like this is my one grandmother's and this belonged to my other grandmother, and the ring, and you know, my aunts, who I was also close with, who passed away in May of last year. This was her awesome. Necklace. So just keep them close, you know, and you know, in the same vein of, you know, keeping them alive, like carve spaces for people to remember that, just like you do, you know, like because just because time has passed doesn't mean that the influence of who that person was and what they meant is gone, you know. In fact, it's probably a little bit more resonant, you know, and people deserve to be loved and celebrated even if they're not here. So, just talk about it, you know, and if you're getting sad, feel that feel too, because it's
feelings.
A wave, you know.
Well, you answered the question that I was going to ask you.
Oh, what's that?
I was going to say, like, if there's someone, because you never know who we're going to be listening to this and they're like actively grieving something you would like want to make sure, whether it's like a myth you want to bust, which I think we did a lot of myth busting kind of about those perceptions of what grief is supposed to look like. But if there's something that, like, if someone is actively grieving, you'd like want to leave them with.
I think grief can look a lot of different ways, and it comes up in weird ways, and it comes up at times that you don't expect it to come up, and at the times that you maybe expect it to come up, and you'll have a lot of different emotions about it. You know, sadness and helplessness is definitely one, I think, as you sort of like move into the next phase of your life without them, you know, but at the same time, I think taking comfort in the fact, I've taken a lot of comfort in the fact of knowing like whatever I lose now, I'll gain later. Like, yes, they're dying, you know, like my loved ones are dying, but we're all going to the same place. Maybe. I don't know what your theology is, but like
in theory, we hope.
I like to think that we're all going to go to the same place, and that whenever my journey here is over, like I'll be reunited with them, you know, and that we're just kind of in a separate, you know, state of existence until then. And remembering all that they left me and the gifts that I've gotten from them, you know, over time, and like just make space to reflect with it. I think that's my advice. Make space to remember them, make space to be sad about their loss, make space to have gratitude for everything that they gave you and like the time that you had together. Make space to talk with other people about your feelings and them, you know, and that person. Don't be afraid to still be sad, you know, years after, decades after. There is no, sure, you know, over time you might have more practice and, you know, it's a different perspective, but grief is always going to be there, you know.
There's no timeline. It's not like you hit a certain date and it goes away.
No. And you can't expect yourself to be over it, you know. Integrated in the same way that, you know, I don't know how much you'll talk about a lot. But I think grief and trauma are kind of the same, different sides of the same coin, you know. I think those experiences are really similar. So just be really gentle with yourself. And I think that's what I got to say on that.
Well, I appreciate you so much. I think this was a really beautiful and touching conversation, and I appreciate your like openness and willingness to have those conversations, because it's not easy in lots of different ways. It's, again, one of those uncomfortable talk abouts that we hope to make more comfortable. But it's uncomfortable just because we miss our loved ones. But the more that we're open to talking about it, I think the easier it is both to go through and the more comfortable it like feels to sit with. So I appreciate you. Lots and lots and lots.
You too, love.
Thanks. Well, this was my friend and coworker Liz on our second episode here. On our next episode, I will be joined virtually by someone that I really admire and I'm excited to have a conversation with. Her name is Tracy, and she is the CEO of a organization called Callisto. So we're going to talk about some of the work that her and her team is doing, and that'll be a super fun conversation. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to link some resources both in the description, and if I can figure out my technology, I'll try to put them up somewhere so you can see them. But until next time, I've been Sid, and this has been Unlearning Out Loud episode 2.
Hey!